Hi everyone. Welcome to today's Learn with Google webinar on unleashing the combined power of Google Analytics and AdWords. I'm Sarah Moqued and I'm a marketing manager here at Google, and I'm really excited to be moderating today's webinar. We've got a couple of great speakers, Simon and Rachel. I'll introduce them in a minute. But before we get to the fun stuff, I do have a few quick housekeeping items that I'd like to go through. First off, I know that many of you are wondering if the webinar will be recorded, and yes, of course we will be recording it. You'll receive an email within about a week or so, which will give you a link to that recording, and we're also going to be doing a follow-up blog post on the Google Analytics blog, so you can look for more information there as well. If you look at your console, you'll see that there are several helpful widgets. The first one is the Q&A widget. You can feel free to type in your questions at any time during the webinar, and we will respond to as many of them as we can. We're happy to say that we've got a lot of people on the line today, so we'll be doing our best to keep up with you. And we'll also have a live Q&A at the end of the session today, and then we'll be following up with that blog post with more answers to some of the top questions that we received during the course of the webinar. The second widget is that resources widget, so you can check that to find lots of other helpful resources and links, so make sure you take a look there. We also have social sharing widgets for Twitter and Google+, and we would definitely encourage you to share. If you do so, please use that hashtag measure, and that's a great hashtag to use today or at any time. It's not just for our community, but it's also a broader community of measurement experts, so you can get great answers to your questions about other things as well there. And then finally, there's the survey widget. So I would really encourage you, not just for our benefit, of course we want to know what you've heard so we can improve our future webinars, but you also have the chance to win a Nexus 7. So definitely do enter that survey before you go. And thanks so much. So now I'd like to introduce our two great speakers. First is Rachel Whitlack, who works between our global sales teams and Google Analytics product and eng teams to launch new features, and she brings all the feedback she hears back to the team. So if you submit your feedback today, we can also be making sure that the team hears your thoughts. And then Simon Rosen, who's our global sales lead for AdWords measurement, and he works on AdWords, conversion tracking, search funnels, and also Google Analytics integrations. So together they're going to talk you through how you can unleash the combined power of Google Analytics and AdWords. With that, I will hand it over to Rachel.
Thank you, Sarah. It's great to be here today. These are concepts that Simon and I have talked about amongst our broader team for ages. And it's really nice to be able to do this public webinar. And just so you guys know, some of you likely stay in touch with the Google Analytics blog and some of you the AdWords blog. And we do quite a few webinars. And we really want to make sure that our products are working for you. And we look at that in 3 different ways. Number one is helping you win the moments that matter. And this is helping you get in front of the right customers at the right time in the right place with the right ad. The next thing that we think a lot about is enabling better decisions. And this webinar is going to focus specifically on that. So Simon and I obviously love data quite a bit. We love using these two products together, and we want to make sure that you take the information that we talk about today and go ahead and put it to use to get a better ROI for your business. And then the last one is constantly innovating. Simon's going to talk about some really cool things to help you automate and scale your work. We know that there's a lot going on in digital, and hopefully we can just help you do a lot of those mundane things much, much faster with our products. So with that, I want to go ahead and jump into the content. I want to start with this quote. I don't know if some of you are familiar with Justin Catroni. We also have Avinash and Justin Catroni, two of the bigger names in terms of search engine marketing and website analytics advice. And Justin now works at Google, and this is a quote that I love and really helps set the stage for today. Analytics and AdWords are made to be used together. While AdWords helps advertisers measure ads and their performance, analytics helps you understand what happens to traffic once it gets to your site. And all of today is about how do you use those two products together, how are they different. And what we're going to focus on in the next hour is really going through these big sections. So I'm just going to quickly give you an introduction into AdWords and Google Analytics. Hopefully all of you are familiar with those two products today, but if not, this is a nice background of knowledge. We're then going to talk about how to make sure you have the right setup to make use of everything today. And this would be a helpful checklist as well to follow to make sure you can do everything that we're going to do later in the hour. Simon's going to talk about demystifying the AdWords and Analytics measurement platforms. There are some similarities that we want to make sure you talk about, and these are once again some of the things that Simon and I debate all day long. And this is our first time coming out and teaching you to think in a framework and making sure you know all the differences. He's also going to talk about how to use Google Analytics data in AdWords. So if that's your preferred user interface, you log into AdWords and you really want to see your Google Analytics data there, he's going to show you exactly what to do. And then I'm going to switch gears and talk about the opposite. How can you use AdWords data in Google Analytics? If that's the front end, you want to log into analytics and understand what's going on, how can you do that? And I'm actually going to do a live demo to show you what reports to look at. We're going to talk about 2 case studies and close it up and then open it up for Q&A. So with that, I want to start with really just making sure everyone has a good foundation of knowledge. And what happens is most of you are familiar. You buy AdWords keywords. You bid on search terms. Whether you have a yoga studio, whether you sell camping gear, you're buying these keywords and you're showing up on the Google.com homepage. And there you go. You see a screenshot of the red part. These are where the ads actually show. And what happens is when people click on those ads, they go to your website. This is just a screenshot of the Google store. That's the account I'm going to demo. So you buy ads, people go to your website, and what you might be missing if you only rely on AdWords is really this sort of data. How many visits did you get? What locations did people come from? How many people bounced or were just a single page visit? How much time did they spend on your website? When we talk about using these two, they're made together. This is exactly what we mean. One product's strength is another's weaknesses and vice versa. And that's why it's really important to use them together. And this is the first framework I want to introduce to this group. We call it the ABC framework, or the Acquisition, Behavior, Conversions framework. And as you can see, we've broken down the 2 products here. And so where AdWords is very good at reporting on AdWords clicks, AdWords impressions, it doesn't really understand if you're buying ads elsewhere, if you're buying ads through Bing or Yahoo, for example, or on Facebook. It doesn't really understand that activity because it's AdWords. It doesn't have a very good sense of any behavior metrics on your website, so time on site. It doesn't have the ability to report on that, and that's where Google Analytics can come in and import those metrics. What you can do with AdWords is use conversion tracking to understand which ads are driving conversions. Now Google Analytics is able to go a bit deeper, however, and this is really where these 2 products align. So with Google Analytics, you put code on your entire website, and therefore it can understand traffic from all these other non-AdWords sources, so the Facebook, Yahoo, Bing, etc. But it doesn't really get as rich in terms of impressions, so you need to bring that AdWords data into Google Analytics. And then what it can report on are visitor metrics. How many visitors are you getting? How many of those visitors are new? How many of those bounce? And then what it will help you do is report on really rich and detailed outcome data. So if you have e-commerce and you're selling a retail product, you can import revenue and get metrics such as average order value. We'll talk about per visit value later. And you can track many more of your micro conversions. So maybe your core action is selling a product or getting a lead form submitted, but you also have a video, which is a really good qualifier of a good visit to your website, which Google Analytics can very much do for you. So now that we have that framework and you understand the strengths of each, let's talk about the setup. And this is the important foundation to make sure that you're getting the best data. And with these 2 products, bad data is bad analysis. So I would use this next slide as essentially a checklist. So the first thing you want to make sure that you do is ensure you have admin rights on both your Google Analytics and your AdWords account. And this is important because you need those 2 accounts to be linked. And that admin email address is really the link between those 2 to make sure that you can see data in both. You can link, and we're going to talk about linking later because it's very important. And then what you want to make sure you do is auto-tag your ads. And auto-tagging sounds like a very technical term, but it basically means that Google Analytics understands the source. It understands the keyword associated with visits. And it needs to be in a specific format and language for Google Analytics to see it. And with AdWords and Analytics, because they are both Google products, you can just check a box and not really have to worry about the details and doing a lot of manual work there. What you then want to do is import your cost data into Google Analytics. So this allows you to see your CPC data within Google Analytics, and I'll talk about why that matters later. So this is another checkbox you need. Something you'll also want to think about is enabling data sharing settings. So if you call us and you have a question or you have a team that you work with, we want to make sure we can help you. So there are settings within Google Analytics to make sure that your data is shared in the way that you think is necessary. And then lastly, we want to make sure that you set up goals or e-commerce. And once again, we'll touch upon this later. But the better data you have and the more data you have and the closer that aligns to your actual business goals, the better these products are used to make sure that we're focusing on ROI. And with that, I want to once again just talk a bit more about linking, because this is such a critical step to making sure these two products work together. And once you have that admin email address on both AdWords and Analytics, you can actually link from either AdWords or Analytics. So if you start from the AdWords end and you're already in your AdWords account and you're not yet linked, navigate to the Tools and Analysis page, choose Google Analytics, and then navigate to the Admin tab. And then you'll go ahead and see a wizard that will walk you through how to fulfill all those other steps, such as auto-tagging, such as importing your cost data, and you'll be good to go. Conversely, let's say Analytics is usually the interface you log into. You can go ahead and link that way. And if you're in Google Analytics, you navigate to the admin section, then you look for AdWords, and you go ahead and you make sure that you have your links, once again following the same prompts to set up auto-tagging and import your cost data. So keep in mind, depending on what you're more comfortable with, you can link from either side. And something that's just a sneak peek coming down the pike here is our analytics team is working on a refresh in terms of the user interface wizard in the Google Analytics side. So this might look different from what you see in a month from now or today. So keep that in mind. We're trying to make it as simple as possible because this is really such a critical step. And once you're linked and you've checked all of those boxes, the data really goes back and forth, and this is where most of the value comes from. So because AdWords is great for acquiring customers and getting in front of them, and Google Analytics can report on their deepest performance, you really want to use these two together, and we want to make sure that the data goes back and forth. So you can see Google Analytics data in AdWords, or you can see AdWords data in Google Analytics. If you don't want to use conversion tracking, you can use Google Analytics goals, and you can import those into AdWords. Or if you just want to run an AdWords report and see your behavior metrics, just go ahead and choose that setting. And then the last thing you can also do to use these two products together in a really actionable way is remarketing lists. So if you're interested in remarketing, which is the ability to get back in front of customers who maybe didn't purchase from you the first time, you can use your Google Analytics code with a small tweak and then use your Google Analytics account to create those lists that are then used in AdWords. So these are the things we think about to try to make it as easy as possible. And keep in mind that this data always goes back and forth. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my British friend Simon to talk about demystifying these two platforms.
Thanks, Rachel. So very shortly, we're actually going to dive into the products themselves, and we're going to take a look at some practical uses for both Google Analytics and AdWords. But before we do that, we thought it would be very useful to kind of demystify some of the similarities and actually the differences between these two platforms. On the face of it, some of the requirements and features of both AdWords and Google Analytics look pretty similar. However, it's pretty important that there's actually some real distinctions between the two. And so I'm just going to spend a bit of time summarizing how the two product offerings do differ, so that you can hopefully find the right combination for yourself and get the most from each. So this section is going to be split into three parts. First of all, we're going to talk about tagging. And with AdWords, we offer the conversion tracking tag, which is really a feature which is essential if you want to get the most out of AdWords and the most out of your advertising. Google Analytics, on the flip side, also requires advertisers to tag their website, but in a very different way. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the differences once you have tagged, and in AdWords that would be tracking conversions through conversion tracking, and in Google Analytics it's tracking either goals or e-commerce transactions once you've tagged your website and set those up. And thirdly, I'd like to talk about attribution. Both AdWords and Analytics offer two attribution products, and attribution itself is probably something which requires some demystifying. So I'd like to just touch on each of those products and how you can think about using both, because they're very much complements rather than substitutes. So firstly, to jump into tagging. So on the face of it, both Analytics and AdWords do require you to tag your website, but as I mentioned, this has to be done in very different ways. With AdWords conversion tracking, it's really a feature which is designed to allow advertisers to track specific desirable actions that their customers take after a user's clicked on an ad. So, for example, if you sell something online, you'd probably like to track how many sales you actually make and how many resulted from your advertising. Similarly, if you're an insurance provider or someone who collects leads, you probably want to track how many lead forms your advertising generated for you. So as a result of this, AdWords conversion tracking only means that advertisers need to place one tag on the conversion pages of their website. Google Analytics, however, is a very different thing, as it tracks traffic and behavior across your entire website. So as a result, just to use Google Analytics, you do need to place the Analytics tag on every page of your website. The second important thing, and the clue is kind of in the name, AdWords conversion tracking automatically makes conversion data available in AdWords. So as soon as conversions begin to appear and the tag has been placed on the website, you'll begin to see conversions data populate in AdWords, which you can then use for bidding and optimization. In Google Analytics, if you have set up goals, you can also bring this data into AdWords too, but as Rachel mentioned, there's just one additional step, and that is to link your Google Analytics and AdWords accounts and import those goals into AdWords. Once they're there, they do behave in much the same way as AdWords conversions, but it's important to note that you probably don't want to do both. You probably only either want to set up conversion tracking or to import goals. Having the both can muddy the water. And thirdly, this is nice functionality for both of the tagging solutions, is that you can build remarketing lists, which Rachel touched upon, which allows you with your display advertising campaigns to retarget users who have already done something on your website. So with AdWords conversion tracking, you can build remarketing lists of users based on that one conversion tracking tag that you've placed. With the Google Analytics tag, you get a very sophisticated remarketing solution, which allows you to build remarketing lists of users based on all different sets of criteria for how they behave on your website. So for example, you may want to target users who visit a certain subset of pages, or you may want to target users who spend maybe 10 minutes or more on your website. So you can build those remarketing lists with Google Analytics, and the nice thing that Rachel touched upon too is that those remarketing lists can then be moved into AdWords, and you can then target your advertising against them. Thirdly, is that these tags enable our attribution solutions. In AdWords, conversion tracking will automatically give you search funnels, and they'll be readily available for you as soon as conversion data starts coming in. In Google Analytics, once you set up goals or e-commerce, you will then have multi-channel funnels there and ready for you to use. Fourthly, and one of the nice things to actually tracking conversion data is that you get access to our full suite of automated bidding solutions. So for example, you have access to use Conversion Optimizer and Enhanced CPC, and these will algorithmically and automatically try to generate the most conversions for you within your designated budget. With Google Analytics, if you do set up goals, you can bring these goals into AdWords, as we've mentioned, and you can then also use these automated bidding solutions. And finally, one of the really nice features to AdWords conversion tracking, which is not available with Google Analytics, is if you are running display campaigns, you get access to view-through conversions. What a view-through conversion essentially is that it shows you the number of users who saw your ad and later went on to purchase from you. And so this is a great metric to get a sense of both the reach of your display advertising and also the return that it's generating. Now, once you have done the tagging, you will likely have conversions in AdWords and hopefully also either goals or e-commerce in Google Analytics. And there's some notable differences between the two that I just want to touch on here. The first one, and probably the most important to bear in mind here, and Rachel touched on this too, is that AdWords conversions only track conversions which came from AdWords sources. So only if a click on an AdWords ad led to a conversion will it show up here. If people clicked on a Facebook ad or a Bing or an organic Google result and then converted for you, you will not see that information available to you in AdWords. Google Analytics, however, provides you the full overview of all of the goals or e-commerce transactions that you're getting online. So across your entire website and for all of the sources that drive traffic to your website, you can see the full number of conversions that you're receiving. Secondly, as a result of this, AdWords conversion tracking is obviously less complex, but you have a much smaller slice of the picture. So Google Analytics is a great complement to see the full view of everything that's occurring across your site. Thirdly, within Google Analytics, you have an option to see how your different users move between the different goals that you've set. So for example, if it's possible to sign up for a newsletter on your site, and also to complete a lead form, and also to purchase something from you, from Google Analytics, you can see how your customers actually flow between these different goals and how they move between one another and how they interact with the whole suite of goals which you've set up. In AdWords conversion tracking, unfortunately, you can't see this movement. And finally, one of the really important features, which I'm going to touch on in a moment, is that both AdWords conversion tracking and Google Analytics allow you to measure not only the number of conversions or goals that you're generating, but also the associated value or revenue of those goals. So this is an incredibly important optimization point, as not only can you optimize to the number of conversions, but actually to the revenue that you're receiving. And as such, that allows you to try and maximize the return on investment that you're generating. Now finally, the last section that I want to try and demystify is attribution. So attribution is really the process of trying to assign credit for the conversions that you receive. Now when someone converts for you online, it's pretty likely that they didn't just click on one ad or see one of your listings, but they likely clicked on multiple ads. Maybe they saw a YouTube video, maybe they did 6 searches and clicked on 2 display ads. Now, typically only the last interaction has received credit for that conversion. What attribution allows you to do is to look at the full path to conversion and assign the credit differently along that path. Now, Google offers 2 main attribution solutions. The first one is search funnels, and this lives right within AdWords, and as I mentioned, is available with conversion tracking. The second one is multi-channel funnels, and that's available in Google Analytics. Now, these are 2 really extremely powerful tools, and I think they're best used really for bid optimization, budget setting, and really getting the deep understanding of exactly how your advertising is working together for you. You can look beyond the last click and see what was the journey your customers take before they purchase. Now, although there's several key similarities between the 2, there's also several differences which really make using both of these tools together the ideal pairing. So firstly, and the key difference between these 2, is that search funnels only shows you the path to conversion for the keywords on google.com. So for example, if you sell shoes, you might see that your customers click on a keyword for shoes. They then click on a keyword for women's shoes after refining their criteria slightly. They might then have decided on the brand that they're interested in and actually the type of shoe that they're looking for. And as such, they do a final search for high-heeled Jimmy Choo shoes before they eventually purchase from you. Now, by uncovering this data and understanding this full journey that the customer took, you can properly value each step in the path and ensure that you're present at every stage of your customer's journey. What multi-channel funnels does is it goes one step further and shows you the path to conversion across all of your different sources. So for example, you may be able to see that a customer clicks on a display ad, then clicks on 2 search ads, before later clicking on another display ad and then purchasing from you. And what this really provides is a holistic view as to how all your different media and all your different advertising are working together to drive conversions for you. So you can hopefully try to identify different gaps and identify maybe where your budget is best allocated along those paths. A second key difference between the 2 is that search funnels actually include impressions. So what this means is that if a customer conducted a search and saw your ad but didn't necessarily click, but did convert for you, you'll be able to see that search impression in the path to conversion. And this is important, and it really can be something which is used for optimization, because you might want to dig in and think about, well, why are my users only seeing my ads and not necessarily clicking? Is there something I can do in getting a higher position or attracting more of these clicks. Multi-channel funnels, on the flip side, does not include these search impressions. As I've mentioned, search funnels is available through conversion tracking, multi-channel funnels through GA. Search funnels at present doesn't include an attribution modeling tool, which is a tool which allows you to assign credit along the path in different ways. So you could, instead of providing all the credit to the last interaction, provide credit to the first interaction, or perhaps you can distribute it evenly. In Google Analytics, we have the attribution modeling tool, which is incredibly powerful and very customizable, which allows you to choose from a suite of different default models and also some customizable models yourself, so you can find the right model for your business and for your website. And finally, one of the nicest things about search funnels is that we now have the columns available just like any other column within AdWords. So what this means is when you're in your campaigns tab or your ad group or your keyword tab, you can look at how many assists did my keywords provide across my account. So that means you can use them in your bidding and optimization flow as you would any other regular AdWords metric. The multi-channel funnels metric, meanwhile, can be found in the conversion section of Google Analytics. Now, moving on and shifting gear slightly, I'd like to talk about the big picture and why you would want to measure many of these different things in AdWords and Google Analytics, and what really is the benefit to doing so. So this is a concept that we call the staircase of optimization, and the higher up the staircase you go, hopefully the much better optimization you can provide to your advertising, and as a result you should be able to deliver much greater returns on your advertising. So starting at the bottom of the ladder, if you're not tracking conversion data, either in AdWords or in Google Analytics, the only metric which you can really optimize to is clicks. And this is useful because you do want to attract as much traffic as possible to your website. However, if you are only optimizing to clicks, there's really no insight into how many of those clicks are actually valuable for you. And you also don't know, are some of the clicks much more valuable than others, and you would have no way of assessing that. By moving up the staircase and beginning to track conversions, either through conversion tracking or by importing GA goals, you can try to optimize to ensure you are generating as many conversions as possible for your business. Now, this is obviously a big leap forward. However, there's an important point here that not all conversions are going to be created equal. Some are likely much more valuable to your business than others. For example, some customers may buy 10 products from you, another may buy only one, and you're likely going to want to optimize to who are your highest spending customers and try to avoid the low spending ones if you can. Now, you can try and account for this by beginning to track revenue data, and you can do this through conversion tracking or through GA goals, and it's really a simple feature to set up, but one that's immensely powerful. And by tracking revenue data, you can now optimize not to the number of conversions that you get, but actually to the return on investment that you're generating from your advertising. So you can try to ensure that you maximize revenue for the amount that you spend. And to go one step further, and this is the top of the staircase, and this is an area still very much under development, but one with huge and exciting possibilities, is beginning to tie in both your customer data and your CRM data to go beyond just what's happening online and with your conversions data, but actually to look at completed sales. Who are your return purchasers? How are your cross-sales performing, and any other offline data that you have. In doing so, you can then optimize to the full value of your customers and the lifetime value of your customers, and you can bid, hopefully, for your highest value potential customers. So I'm going to shift gear again once more, and now we're going to dive into the products, which I think is hopefully the most interesting aspect of this for you. And the product which I'm going to speak to is the ability to import your Google Analytics engagement metrics right into AdWords. So firstly, as you can see here, and this is just a brief screenshot, one of the great things about this feature is that you get 4 powerful Google Analytics metrics show up as regular columns in AdWords. And what this means is that you can use this data just like you would any other AdWords columns, and you can use it for your optimization, bidding, budget decisions right within your standard flow within AdWords. You don't have to jump between Google Analytics and AdWords, and you don't have to export from GA, export from AdWords, and try and tie the two reports together in Excel. You have it all in one single place where you can make your decisions. Now, what's really great about these 4 metrics is that they're not really data that's been available anywhere else in AdWords historically. What these do is they give you a first-hand look what happens to your ad clicks after they've actually landed on your website. So you can now begin to understand your users' behavior and actually their profile. So this feature allows you to import 4 metrics, and I'll just briefly cover each of them, although I suspect many of you are already familiar with each of them. The first is bounce rate, and what bounce rate is it's the percentage of visits that only visit one page before they exit your site. So if a keyword does have a high bounce rate, it's probably suggestive that the website didn't provide the information that they were looking for or were hoping to find. The next 2 are engagement metrics, pages per visit and average time on site. And what these really give you a sense of is how deep into my site or how much time are my users spending on my site before they eventually leave. And you may notice marked differences for different keywords, that some keywords attract visitors who spend a lot of time and view a lot of pages, while others, people are basically spending only seconds. The last and potentially the most powerful is percent new visits. And what this tells you is how many of the users that clicked on a particular keyword are new to your site versus those that have actually visited before. And you can start to dive in to try and get a sense of whether different keywords have different profiles. Now, I'd just like to talk about a few practical ideas for making use of this data. And these are ways which we at Google recommend as powerful and simple practical use cases. The first one is using the new visitors metric. So by understanding which keywords are attracting first-time visitors to your site, you can ensure you appropriately value them. And these introductory keywords are likely highly valuable for you as they're providing the first interaction these users have with your website. Secondly, if some keywords or ads have low conversion rate, bounce rate can be massively useful in helping to identify where things are going wrong. And thirdly, what I'm going to talk to is that one of the nicest things about bringing these metrics into AdWords is that it allows you to automate and optimize and lose all of the manual work. And I'll speak to how you can do that shortly. So the first example is using the percent new visitors. And so once you've linked your Google Analytics and AdWords accounts and you're importing the metrics, you can just go ahead and enable the percent new visits column like you would any other AdWord column just by selecting from the column customizer. So you enable this column in any of your tabs, either the campaign, ad groups, or keywords, and then you can just sort by this column to quickly identify which keywords are introducing the highest percentage of new visitors to your site. Now, these keywords are likely very valuable and potentially more valuable than you previously taken account of, as they provide the first interaction your potential customers are having with you. So as a result, you probably want to ensure that these ads for these keywords are showing in your strongest positions so that you can capture as much of this new traffic as you possibly can. Secondly, one of the most frustrating aspects of online advertising is finding that you're generating a lot of significant traffic to your website, but few of the clicks that you're getting are actually turning into conversion. So I think to try and improve this, bounce rate is a very powerful tool. So here, for example, on the Ads tab, you can enable bounce rate, and we're going to sort by the metric again, and so we can quickly see which of my keywords are resulting in the most one-page visits and bounces. Users that are bouncing are probably not finding the information that they were looking for, so I can use this information to try and ensure that the messaging in my ads is reflective both of the web page and the content on that page that users are clicking through to. So I should probably ask myself the question, is the website relevant to the ad that the user just clicked on, or are they being directed to non-useful information? I can now use this data both to improve my ad messaging and ensure I send my customers to the right page at the right time for them. Now thirdly, as I mentioned, one of the great things about bringing these metrics into AdWords is the ability to automate things. So one of the most powerful features of AdWords, but I think it's still underutilized, is the ability to set automated rules. So what AdWords automated rules allow you to do is to schedule automated changes to specific parts of your account based on a set of criteria that you specify. So for example, some of the most popular automated rules that we see is for advertisers to change their daily budget on peak shopping days. So for example, they may choose to increase their daily budget by 50% when they know there's going to be a lot of traffic so that they can capture those users. Additionally, many advertisers choose to increase their CPC bids based on different conversion rates. So if conversion rates improve, they like to improve their bids. And similarly, some advertisers rotate in different ad text when they have a promotion going on a certain day of the week. Now, one of the nice things about this is that these rules take much of the overhead and the manual work out of optimization by automatically making the changes that you want based on the criteria that you set. So you can easily find them by clicking on Automate in any tab of your AdWords account. And the great thing about these rules is that they work perfectly with the imported GA metrics. So for example, a couple of ideas for rules that you could set using them would be to increase bids by 10% if a keyword has a % new visits greater than 80%. So for example, I know this keyword is important, it introduces people to my website, I want to increase bids for it. Similarly, on the flip side, I could choose to decrease my budget by 5% if a keyword's bounce rate goes above 60%. So here I want to ensure that I'm not wasting my budget on keywords which are not driving engagement for me. So if bounce rate goes above 60%, please reduce my budgets. So the great thing about this is that these automated rules are highly customizable. You definitely don't have to just use the suggestions that I threw out. You can find very much the right rules for you. And it's very easy to test and iterate, so you can test different thresholds and try to measure the impact for you. And with that, I will hand things back over to Rachel, who is going to walk us straight into a Google Analytics live demo.
Thank you, Simon. So just before, I want to just remind you guys, number one, you can certainly chat in questions. We'll take some at the end, but you can chat them in. There are also quite a few good resources for some questions that have come in your resources widget. And then one of the surveys is how you want to use Google Analytics and AdWords together. And that's something I'm going to go through my examples, but please chat your own. So I'm going to share my screen. And Simon did a great job of, okay, how do I take my Google Analytics metrics, push it into AdWords, and sit within the AdWords UI and make smarter decisions. And I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm sharing my Google Analytics front end. I can either access this by logging directly into Google Analytics at google.com/analytics, or if I'm already in my AdWords account, I can go to Tools and Analysis and choose Google Analytics, assuming I've already linked and done everything that I wanted to. And when I log in, I'm going to hop over to the Reporting tab. And this is really where I'm going to look at some specific reports, and then I'll also talk about a custom report that would be in the Customization tab. So when I log in, I want to go directly to my AdWords reports. And those are located under Traffic Sources, which is everything about what's coming to your website, what sources are driving traffic to your website. I click into Advertising, and then I see this AdWords link here. And the first report that I clicked on is Campaigns, and I just want to give you an overview of some of the functionality before I get a bit deeper. So I start off, and I can see all of my AdWords campaigns. If I want to dig into the ad group, I would just click in here. I would see my ad groups there. And if I wanted to click into a keyword, I would be able to do that as well. Just click one more time. So this maps the account structure that you should already be used to if you're buying AdWords. And I want to show you guys, this is really where the strength and when the handoff from AdWords to Google Analytics happens. This is really where all of those useful behavior metrics I mentioned before, where those live. So you can see pages per visit. You have average visit duration, % new visits, bounce rate. And you can see these in AdWords, but it's great to see them here because we can also combine those with some other metrics to get a bit deeper. There's a few different tabs that I want to make sure all of you guys utilize. We're on the Site Usage tab, which has most of those behavior metrics. But if I've set up goals, I can see a lot more information about the goal value and how many goals I've set up. And you can create a few different sets of goals. We have 4 here. You can create up to 20 goals total. And I certainly recommend using these to track all of the valuable actions of your website, not just really those that drive money for you. In the example that we have in this Google Store account, you can see they've created goals for people who have browsed the website a few minutes, have visited more than 4 pages or more than 10 pages. And we've associated a value with that as well. So if you actually run ads on your website and you're making some money from that, this is a good way to think about adding that value along with a goal here. What if I've set up e-commerce? So I'm selling some sort of retail device, and I want to see my revenue metrics. You would then navigate to the e-commerce tab. And as you can see here, the metrics change. So I see revenue. I see how many transactions. I can see the average value, which is going to be the value based on the e-commerce transactions that have come in. And I can also see per visit value. So this is the revenue or the goal value associated, divided by visits rather. So it's the revenue divided by visits. And this is a great metric because it helps me qualify what are really good campaigns and what aren't very good campaigns. So when I see a very high per value visit, this means there's a lot of revenue for fewer visits or less traffic. And then we have a much smaller per visit value here. So this is where I start to move up that optimization ladder and start to get a little bit more focused on my return on investment and make sure that I'm really focusing on how to optimize for that. So the first thing I want to make sure you guys use are make sure that you use all of these different tabs so you can move up that optimization ladder. With site usage, it's all about behavior. And then with goals and e-commerce, it gets much closer to your ROI. And really the closest way that Google Analytics can do this is through the Clicks tab. So if you've imported your cost data and you've linked your accounts, then you get metrics like this, such as CPC and RPC. So let's compare your revenue that you're getting to your cost per click. Now in the previous report, you might have seen a revenue of $50, which may sound great, but then when you look at your costs and you paid $75 for $50 worth of revenue, it doesn't look so good. And so we've calculated your ROI and margin as well. And this is really, once again, how you start to focus on the metrics that really matter for your business and not just your AdWords campaign. So when I look at this report now and I look at margin and I see negative 11,000% rather, I can start to understand that I might need to work a bit more on this campaign and understand what's working well about the other campaigns here that have a positive margin. So once again, try to move up that staircase, set up as much as you can so you can focus on really the metrics that matter. So I want to now jump down to the Keywords tab. And there's not a whole lot of data here because this is our Google Store test account. But I want to focus on the ones that we have here. So most of you, just please focus on the Google Store keyword here. And there's 2 things I want to show you. The first one is secondary dimensions, which just think of that as a new way to cut your data. And then we have segmentation. And this is going to be a new way to group your data. So let's start with a new way to cut our data. I'm going to navigate up to my secondary dimensions here. And what I'm really curious about is I saw that Google Store keyword, but how does the performance differ by ad slot? So when it's, let's say, up here above the organic search results, do I get more traffic? Does traffic bounce more? Do people spend more time on my website as compared to when it's down here on the right-hand side? So I'm going to hop back to my Google Analytics. I'm going to choose secondary dimension, and I'm going to go to ad slot, which breaks it down from top versus right-hand side as I just showed you. And boom, I see these 2 new rows. And I get a little bit more useful information. I can see that the top is driving more visits, albeit quite a small volume of traffic. And I can see how the average visit duration, how many new visits, and the bounce rate, etc. So this is a good way, once again, once you think you've found some useful information, use secondary dimensions to cut it down a bit further. And now I can start to think about how I want to bid. Do I want to create an automated rule to bid up to try to get to that top slot because the performance is really good for me? Or am I perfectly comfortable focusing on the right-hand side? Related to ad slot, we also have ad slot position. So this is actually breaking it down by the number. And keep in mind here, we're going to see 1s and 2s and some 4s and 5s. But what this means is you could have a top 1 slot and a right-hand side 1 slot. So I always usually will start with ad slot and then move to ad slot position, because otherwise I might get a bit confused. I see 1 and it could be either. But once again, I can start to think much more actionably about how I want to bid. And when I see Google Store and I see when it's in the 1st and the 2nd slot, I can go ahead and think a bit more analytically about what I want to do there in terms of my bids. The last useful secondary dimension that I'll show you is going to be destination URL. So when you have a very high bounce rate, you might think, well, there's 3 things that I could be doing wrong. Number 1, maybe I'm not bidding on the right keyword. Number 2, maybe my ad text is very poor and I'm not setting the right expectations. Or number 3, I'm taking people to a page that just isn't useful for them. So when you have keywords that have a high bounce rate, this is a secondary dimension that I would certainly dig into. Because what it does is it will help me break down my keywords. Once again, we see Google Store here. And we can see 2 different destination URLs. And then what you might want to start to do is do ad text landing page testing and figure out which one works better for you. Or I might want to add a 3rd variation here and then check back in and see what the data shows. But those are 3 really useful secondary dimensions, once again, to cut the data at a bit deeper level so that you can make better decisions. I mentioned the next thing I want to show you is something called segmentation. And this is how do you group your keywords together or your campaigns together to make really high-level decisions. So advanced segmentation, or segmentation as we refer to it in Google Analytics, is a really good way to do this. It's just up here in the very top of every single report. You're going to have a few default segments that we've created for you, and then we're going to have some custom segments. And what I recommend that you do as an advertiser is potentially filter out your brand keywords. Your brand keywords are people who already know your name. They're already searching for you because they know you. Obviously, their performance on your website is going to be very different than non-branded keywords. So what I want to do is I actually created a brand segment. And what I also wanted to think about is, who are my high-value individuals? Well, I'm going to define that as people with revenue over $100, and that to me is a useful segment as well. So let me apply these 2. Once again, we won't have a lot of data here, but hopefully you just understand how you can create these segments and just group your terms together. And I can see then what Google Analytics is going to do is pull out traffic that matches that and show you what their high-level performance is. So once again, this is a really good way to group your keywords. All of your keywords are not equal, and segmentation is the way to put them in groups to help you optimize and make higher-level decisions. So I'm going to X these 2 out here. And the last thing I want to show you is how to create a custom report. So as I mentioned before, you have these acquisition metrics like bounce rate, % new visits. You have you have acquisition metrics from AdWords. You have behavior metrics like bounce rate from Google Analytics. And then you can have revenue or goal value metrics as well. And I don't really see any of this in my core reports. So what I created here is a custom report. And this is literally, as it sounds, a report with the metrics that you want, organized exactly how you want to see data. So what I did here is I pulled in my AdWords campaigns, because that's what I want to look at, and I brought in all these useful metrics. So here, my acquisition metrics, these are from AdWords, impressions, clicks, CTR. I've got my behavior metrics as well, % new visits. And then I also have my revenue per click, my cost per click, my revenue. And this is an end-to-end view of all of your data. In this custom report, we created it via a permalink that's available once again in that resource widget. So you can just click on that link. It'll pull up the same structure, and you can make sure that this works for you as well. So now that I want to finish this demo, let's just do a recap of what I showed you. And so now I'm going to go back to the slides, and let's just recap what we looked at. The first one is utilizing AdWords data in Google Analytics. So number 1, make sure that you have goals in Ecommerce set up so you can look at new columns and get further up that optimization ladder, like average value, per visit value, etc. Number 2 is segment your data. Put them in groups, brand keywords, upper funnel keywords, high-value keywords, keywords with a really high revenue. Think of segmenting your keywords because they should all have very different ROI targets. Your brand keywords likely have a lower cost per acquisition because people already know who you are. They're going to convert much faster. So you shouldn't bid on them or set budgets the same way as you do as your other keywords. So use segmentation in Google Analytics to define exactly what that means. The other thing that we talked about was a custom report. So get that end-to-end view to see everything in one place. And once again, you can use your resources widget to get the link for that. And we will also post it on the blog afterwards as well. But this is the report that, once again, you see those ABC metrics, acquisition, behavior, conversions in one place.
And Rachel, I just wanted to break in right now and say thank you so much for this great presentation. We're running a little short on time, so maybe if you want to just go through your next slide, and then we'll take a few live questions from the audience.
Sure. So the last few things to mention, there's some new reporting based on enhanced campaigns coming to Google Analytics. Look for this in the next couple months. It will break down all of your bid vectors, which now matter to you, device, location, and time. So look for this. Very exciting to give you guys this preview on the webinar. And I just want to go ahead and we'll move to the closing slides. So Simon, off to you.
Sounds good. So I'll just try to recap quickly because I know want to leave enough time for a couple of questions. So just in closing thoughts, really the key message here, to get the most out of both Google Analytics and AdWords, it's essential to really ensure that you have linked the two products together and you've enabled all the relevant features. As we mentioned, there's many different types of data that flow between the two. There's your cost data, there's the engagement metrics, remarketing lists. So getting the most out of both of those products is a really powerful thing. Secondly, make use of the attribution tools which are available in both products. As we touched on, there's search funnels in AdWords, which allows you to see the keyword path to conversion and how your customers are searching and how that may differ as they get closer to conversion. And finally, multi-channel funnels to see how your full suite of online media interacts together holistically to drive conversions for you. And finally, what Rachel spoke to, which was using the Google Analytics revenue metrics and the segmentation options to really analyze the different keyword types that you have. So looking at brand and non-brand keywords, which she showcased us, upper funnel keywords, and using that information to set different ROI targets and to bid differently. And with that, I think we can move to the Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Simon and Rachel. This was a really great presentation full of lots of information. Just a reminder to the audience, we did record it, so you'll get that recording in about a week. And before you leave, please do fill out that survey. It's really helpful to us to hear your thoughts. And we have a question in there, as Rachel mentioned, also about asking how you like to use Google Analytics and AdWords together. So that will be helpful for us to hear and move forward and bring feedback back to the product. So looks like we just have time for probably 2 or 3 questions, but as I said, we'll follow up also with some more of those on the blog. So the first question, I think either Simon or Rachel could take this one. We got a few questions come in that say, okay, you keep mentioning linking, but linking actually seems kind of complicated. You know, how can I do this kind of easily? Is this a hard process to do?
I will take this one. Very good question. I mentioned in that section that we know that linking is not as easy as it should be. You can do that in 2 ways. The way to do that in Google Analytics is being updated. Engineering is working on it right now. So that flow is going to be very different in a bit of time from now. So if you think it's too difficult now, please just bear with us for the next month or 2, and hopefully you'll see a new version very soon.
Great, thank you. So that's good. So hang tight, guys, but hopefully things will be getting easier. And then I also got a couple of questions that said, you know, is our goal, you talked about goals and you talked about AdWords conversion tracking. Should I be using both of them? Which one should I be using? And what am I missing if I'm only using one or the other?
Very good question. I'll take that one as well. As a best practice, which we didn't mention here, is if you want to, if AdWords is your primary source of acquisition, AdWords conversion tracking is great for you. However, if you're running a lot of media elsewhere, you want to see how their performance compares, and that's why Google Analytics might be a good option for you in setting up goals or e-commerce based on your business model. E-commerce, you have an e-commerce platform, you're generally retail, and goals if you only have special pages of your website, like a request a quote form or something like that. What I wouldn't do is I wouldn't import the same goals that you're tracking via conversion tracking, because then you might have some nasty discrepancies. So make sure that that's the one thing you just do not do. And in terms of if you choose one or the other, what are you going to miss? View through conversions is the only big thing that you won't get via goals that you will get via AdWords conversion tracking.
And then, Simon, I think this question is for you. I had a couple people also ask about it. They said they thought they already had the accounts linked, but they weren't seeing those extra columns that you were referring to.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and perhaps I can post this in the resource section. But once your Google Analytics and AdWords account are linked together, there's one additional step which needs to be undertaken to enable the metrics. It's actually quite hard to explain without going through, but if you were to go to the linked account section in AdWords, there's an opportunity there to set up the metrics. There is a Help Center article on this, which hopefully does a better job than I'm doing of explaining it. Maybe we can post that in the resources. But once you have done that, it should automatically become available to you, and when you do go to select columns, you should automatically see them there. It's just worth bearing in mind there is just this one additional step beyond the standard linking that needs to be done.
Okay, so we'll try to follow that up on the blog. And I saw a couple of questions. I'll just take a couple of quick questions myself. People asked, how do we find the blogs you've referenced? So there's two different blogs, the AdWords blog and the Google Analytics blog. So the Analytics blog is just analytics.blogspot.com, and then AdWords I believe is it's called the Inside AdWords blog. So I can't remember the exact link, but if you look it up on Google, you will definitely find the Inside AdWords blog, and we'll have these links posted there. And then we also got a question about, are there Google contractors who can help set up this kind of stuff? Yes, we have certified partners. We have AdWords certified partners. We also have Google Analytics specialists, and you can find links to those on the Google Analytics website under Partners, and they can offer a variety of different services at different levels depending on your business needs to help you get the most out of your AdWords and Analytics accounts. So it looks like we have time for one or maybe two more questions. Let me just take a look at some of the other questions that have come in. And again, audience, I do appreciate everything you guys have been sending in. We're going to try to follow up more with these on the blog post afterwards. So there were a couple of questions. I think this is also a good question for Simon. If we have the MCC level, the kind of high-level accounts, can we also be linking there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We know that this is a pain point for advertisers that do have multiple AdWords accounts and do have MCCs. It would be very time-saving to be able to link at the MCC level and just link once. At the moment, you do have to actually link in each individual AdWords account, but it's very much on our radar, and it's definitely something that we're working to improve, and hopefully, in the near future, you will be able to link at the MCC level and do it once and for all of the accounts within that MCC. So we know it's a pain point, and we definitely want to improve this.
Okay, thank you so much. And so I guess, Rachel or Simon, do you have any parting words of wisdom before we close out the call?
Thanks so much for joining, and we'll post. There are a lot of good questions, and we'll make sure that's covered on the blog posts.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank
you very much for your time.
Thanks, Simon and Rachel.
Bye-bye.